Hello, Mary. Can you please on your mic?
Yes, hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hear me
How
now?
are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Welcome to the Global Virtual Summit 2025, Mary.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And before starting your session, I want to introduce you to our audience, Mary.
Yeah.
Mary is the CEO and founder of 𝐑𝐞𝐧𝐞𝐝 Consulting, a digital marketing and thought leadership agency. She helps thought leaders elevate their online presence through social media, podcasts, and speaking engagements. Her clients include best-selling authors, coaches, medical professionals, tech companies, and creatives, with many featured on TED and TEDx stages. Mary is also the author of two Amazon bestsellers, Social Your Book Launch and Spread Your Idea. As a two-time TEDx speaker, she is a respected keynote speaker in the thought leadership space. That was truly an amazing bio, Mary, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about revenue and how to grow your revenue. I'm going to teach you the strategies that I use in my business and that my clients use in their businesses. And so I hope you're taking notes. Feel free to take notes. And if you like something that you hear in the chat, I want you to put money in the chat or put a little emoji or something like that, just so I love some interaction. I will give you the space to ask some questions. So we're talking about how to grow our revenue today. This is booked solid, 5 ways for women to grow their revenue. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Everything that we talk about today is a one-to-many strategy. What does that mean? There's one of me and there is many of you. Okay. I see there's over 60 people here, which is amazing. Thank you for being here. This is a one-to-many. This is the most important thing I could have done today. Okay. There are, just to give you an idea of the kind of reach that you will have with this sort of thing, there are 1 billion people on LinkedIn. Of those, 70 million are C-level executives. Now, how many of you could benefit from talking to a C-suite, a C-level executive in a company that could potentially hire you, right? That can potentially use your services or your products, okay? And in person, there's almost 250,000 conferences, congresses, and conventions in person. That doesn't even count what's online. Right now, we're in a virtual summit, which is awesome. And there are 300,000 Zoom calls that happen every single day. Okay. I see everybody saying, hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. And we're going to start talking about money. All right, my friends, a little bit about me. So I am an entrepreneur. I'm the founder and CEO of 𝐑𝐞𝐧𝐞𝐝 Consulting and the Growth Speak Agency. And what we do is we get our clients visibility. That includes on stage, that includes in the media, and that also includes digitally. So LinkedIn and email and all of those things. Okay. It is my 10th year in business. I actually just passed my 9th anniversary. I'm also a serial entrepreneur. And I'm really excited to talk with you all about all the strategies that I'm going to share today. I'm also a creative person. I'm a musical theater writer and a creative professional, and everything that I do is about getting people's ideas out into the world. That is what gets me up in the morning. That is what makes me go to sleep, and that is what I dream about at night. Okay, but it wasn't always this way. So that is me. I don't know if you can see this well, but on that stage, that is the stage at Carnegie Hall. Which is one of the most important stages for a classical musician. And that is me with my band. I have a music degree, my friends. And the thing they don't tell you in music school is that you could be at the top of your game. I was winning awards. I was playing Carnegie Hall. I was playing, several gigs a week. And you can also be broke. And I was coming home with $15,000 a year. Okay. Now, I don't know if that sounds like a lot or a little to you, but in New York City as a single person, well, guess what? That is not a lot of money. But as a musician, I thought that was going to be my life. And then something changed. So I got a text message one day from a very good friend of mine. Her name is Dory Clark. You might know the name Dory. She's a very well-known business coach and author. And she sent me a text message, and that text message said, "Hey, I have an idea for you. Quit your job." And I said, "Dory, what?" I'm sorry, what? And I said, I don't think you know how broke I am. But she had an idea. And she said, you're already really entrepreneurial in the work that you do. You can fill a big hall with audience. So why not do that work for people who can pay you for it? And so I gave it a shot. I said, okay, I set a date 6 weeks in the future. And I said, let me start talking to potential clients. And I did that. And then my first day as an entrepreneur was May 16th, 2016. I started with 2 clients, 5 or 10 hours a week. And I was suddenly making more money than I was ever making as a musician. And so I grew my business from there completely organically, literally from 2 clients and a dream. I had no funding, no safety net. In fact, my parents told me, good luck. If you fail, guess what? You're on your own. And I'm glad that they told me that, because that meant that I was able to, it raised the stakes of my success. Okay. So almost 10 years later, I do a few things. I help speakers get on stages that will grow their businesses. I help businesses with their unique value proposition and their brand voice. I help business owners get their messages out on social media. I help thought leaders get on global stages, and I help business owners get the visibility in the media and on stage that they need. I've worked with executives at Salesforce and Microsoft and Meta. And I also work with individuals, right? I see a lot of financial folks in here. I see an HR director. I see a life coach. I work with folks who are solopreneurs all the way up to really big C-suite executives in big companies, okay? All right, so I do all of these strategies that I'm gonna lay out. I do them for myself, okay? This is me in 2021, just before doing a virtual presentation for a coaching association. And they gave me a call and they said, hey, we'd really love for you to come and present on LinkedIn and train our members on LinkedIn. I said, sure, that sounds great. So this was me getting ready, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, and you can tell because I have very red hair. And that was sort of my pandemic hair. And I said, well, I don't consider myself a speaker, but this was a really great opportunity, so I'm happy to do it. And I started preparing. And then a week before, they sent me an email, and they said, we hope you're ready because 17,000 coaches have signed up for your session. And I said, are you sure that's not a typo? And they said, no, 17,000. And so just to give you an idea, right, most theaters in New York are 2,000 to 6,000 at the most. This remains to be the biggest audience I've ever been in front of. And they even said, you cannot sell from the stage. And I said, okay, that's fine. I don't need to sell from the stage. But I gave a really good presentation, and my calendar filled up. And that year, I ended 2021 at around $535,000. And the following year, I was at 1.1 million in my business, and I stayed there for the next 2 years. So what I want you to understand is that this one event brought me annual recurring revenue of $500,000. By the way, that's still in my business, right? My business has gone up since then, but I stayed very stable for the next couple of years. And my talk was in 2021. A couple of weeks ago, somebody got on my calendar, and I said, oh, well, how did you hear about me? And she said, I was at your talk in 2021. Okay, so 4 years later, this person said, I got to reach out to you. I remembered you, and I'm ready to work with you. Okay, so what I want you to understand is getting on the right stage, getting in front of the right audience. All it takes is 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, and you can really move the needle on your exposure and on your business. These days, I do webinars, right? I do a webinar a week at least. And I want you to think about these numbers in terms of your own business. All right, this is me. I don't care if 2 people show up to my webinar. I don't care if 5 people show up to my webinar. I don't care if 20 people show up to my webinar. Sometimes 100 people show up, right? But the point is, Even if it's 5 people, it's still a one-to-many situation. I'm still in a situation where I can talk to more than one of my prospects at the same time. Okay. Now, a contract for me is between 10 and, I would say $8,000 and $30,000 at the very low end and the very high end. And these webinars have allowed me to sign at least one contract every single week in 2025 in my business. Okay. So I started working with a coach late last year, and he said to me, and the reason I started working with him was because I was very steady with my revenue. I wasn't growing, and it was a little nerve-wracking to not grow. And so I said, I'm going to work with somebody who's going to help me. And he said, how often are you doing webinars? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not famous. I don't have a big list. I don't think webinars will work for me. I don't run ads. There were all these reasons. And he said to me, Marie, if you are not running webinars, you are leaving money on the table. And I said, you don't have to tell me that twice. And so I did my first webinar the week between Christmas and New Year's. I signed 2 clients, and I went, oh, okay, well, that worked. Let's try it again. Week 1 of January, I signed another client. Week 2 of January, I signed another client. Week 3 of January, signed 2 clients. And every single week in 2025, so far, I have signed at least 1 client. And that's the math on the $10,000 to $50,000 in contracts a week. Okay. I think my record is a little bit higher than the 50,000 at this point. But the point is, okay, do the math on your business. What would 1 client a week do for your business? Maybe you have $1,000 contracts. Maybe you have $100,000 contracts. Maybe you have $10,000 contracts, right? But you can do the math and see what the scale will work on your business, okay? All right, and because I believe in showing numbers, you can see here, well, this is pretty small here, but you can see this is my QuickBooks in February. We're at just under 120,000 there for the last 30 days. My numbers are a little bit higher now. Okay, so just to give you an idea and show you that I believe in transparency about this stuff. This is why I say we should all talk about money. Okay, especially as women business owners, we should get really, really comfortable talking about money, because that's the only way we are going to get better in our businesses, is if we learn from each other and we are honest with each other about growth. Okay. I was brought up in a house where it was impolite to talk about money. And my mom still says to me, she says, why do you have to talk about money? And I say, because the only reason I ended up in business and I ended up successful is because somebody dared to talk about money with me. Okay. So that's why I'm here talking about that with you today. All right. So, here we go. All right. So I do this work for my clients as well. This is one of my LinkedIn clients, and she's a corporate trainer, and she sent me a text message. She said, I closed a $108,000 deal with a company that found me on LinkedIn. And they found her cold, and they found her from the LinkedIn newsletter. By the way, if you go to LinkedIn, go find me and follow me, and you'll get my LinkedIn newsletter, and you'll see how I drive people to my webinars every single week. Okay. By the way, this, my friends, is job security as an entrepreneur. If you can provide that kind of return, then, this is how I built loyalty. All right. So what I want to show you is that this works regardless of sector, and visibility works on your business. Okay. It may not happen right away. It may not happen in the first event that you do, or even in the first 5 events that you do, but eventually when you build up the traction and you build up the numbers of people who see you and the people who have eyes on you, you absolutely will grow your business. Okay. I want to stress that you absolutely will grow your business. Okay. So I want to show you that this works in every sector. This is, every year my company works with a one night only Broadway show. And we did organic influencer marketing, no ads. This got almost 100,000 views, as you can see here. And we sold out the Broadway theater. It was 1,500 seats. And they actually oversold. And so they opened a half hour late, which was, they had to pay union fees because of that. But you know what? They sold out their show. So they were very, very, very happy. Okay. So this works for big business. It works for small business. It works if you're a solopreneur, and it works if you're the CEO of a Fortune 10 company. Okay. All right. So how do you do this for yourself? Here are a few things that I want you to keep in mind, and use these. These are designed to meet you where you are. Okay. If you have never posted on LinkedIn before, if you've never spoken on stage before, if you've never done a webinar before, if you've never been in the media before, okay, these are meant to get you out in the first event that you do. Okay. If you're already a pro, keep these as a reminder, and let's see you get a good, some good traction. Okay. Let's see you build from where you are. Okay. So remember, this is all meant to keep you thinking. It's meant to keep you getting better. It's meant to keep you building and moving forward in your business. All right. First of all, my friends, more is more is more. Okay. This took me a long time to learn. I am a marketer, and it took me a long time to learn. What we tend to do is we tend to post once on LinkedIn, and we go, nobody showed up to my webinar. I posted about it once last week and nobody showed up. And I go, okay, well, how did you remind anybody? No. Did you follow up with anybody? No. Okay. We need to keep consistent messaging when we do visibility work. Okay. That is really, really, really important. You want consistent messaging. I post on LinkedIn 3 to 5 times a week. All my clients post on LinkedIn 3 to 5 times a week. I do at least one webinar a week. And that doesn't count guesting on other people's virtual summits. By the way, I don't care if there's 5 people there. I don't care if there's 50 people there. I don't care if there's 500 people there. All I care is that I get to do it, and then I get in front of my ideal clients. Okay. That is really important. So the more you do, the more chances you will give yourself to get in front of the right people. Second of all, show up and show out. My friends, it is really hard work to keep showing up, and you have to keep doing it. Okay. I am performing right now. Y'all are getting the same energy that everybody in my webinars get, everybody on in-person stages get, everybody gets on LinkedIn. Okay. Showing up as your best self will absolutely move the needle on your business. Okay. I once did a conference with a speaker. It was in the fall, this last fall, and she was going on before me, and she's going like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, well, this wasn't worth my time." And I said, "What do you mean? You haven't been on stage yet." She said, "There's only 40 people here." And I said, "You better be careful. You're about to go on stage. That's not a good attitude." And she said, "Well, I wanted 100 people here. I wanted 200 people here." And I said, "Okay, well, these are 40 of your ideal clients, aren't they?" And she said, "Yeah, but that's not enough." I said, "Okay." She went on stage. She was completely phoning it in. By the way, she has at least 15 years experience on me as an entrepreneur. She has a bigger offering than me. She's way more experienced. And then I went on and I said, this is 40 of my new best friends, 40 of my ideal clients. And I really focused on showing up. It was still one of the best. It's still one of the best gigs I have ever done. And I can tell you that 6 months later, it took me 6 months. I made $100,000 in revenue out of that room. Okay. Because one person signed with me a week after the event. Then she referred me to people. Then the organizer started referring me to people. Then somebody built a referral partnership with me. Okay. You have to do the follow-up. You have to show up, and you have to show up as your best self, ready to serve. Okay. All right. This is the most important thing, my friends. What stories can you tell? Okay. I opened this with some numbers, and then I told you a story. I told you a story about how I used to make $15,000 a year as a musician. And then I pivoted and I built a business, right? Stories are what get people to trust you. They're what get people to pay attention. They're what gets people to remember you. Okay. Your ideal clients will remember you if you tell them a great story. So what stories can you tell? You can lean into 2 things. First of all, who are you and what have you done? It sounds really simple, but those are the things that make you special, and those are the things that make you who you are. They are what makes you the expert that you are, okay? Second of all, big, true claims. What's the claim I put in here? Well, the claim I put is that one of my clients got $100,000 contract out of LinkedIn, right? I can also tell you the story of the client that I did a strategy session with her for her keynote, and then she went and she sold a $75,000 keynote based on the new positioning that she and I did, right? Those are the biggest, truest claims. For myself, I can tell you that I signed $10,000 to $50,000 in contracts a week. Now, that's the biggest version of that story. It's true, and it's the biggest version. It's the most impressive way I can frame that. I don't say, well, I collected $2,000 in new money. I say I signed a $10,000 contract. Okay. So you need to lean into the things that are the biggest version of what you have to say. Okay. Last but not least, I want you to think about pain points. Now, we get into business because we are good people. All right. We get into business because we are helpful and we want to serve and all of that. Okay. But that does not get people to open their wallets. What gets people to open their wallets and buy? Well, it's pain. Okay. Avoiding pain or solving a problem. Now, what does that mean? In marketing, we call this the bleeding neck problem. My friends, if I wake up tomorrow morning, I have a really busy day tomorrow. If I wake up tomorrow morning and my neck is bleeding, guess what? I'm going to cancel all my calls. I'm going to take an ambulance and I'm going to go to the hospital, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much it costs me. Doesn't matter how much it costs my business. I'm going to do that. And if I wake up and I have a paper cut, do you think I'm even going to put a Band-Aid on it? Probably not. Okay. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to type. I'm going to maybe type a little bit slower, but I'm going to do all my calls. I might curse a little bit. I might type a little bit slower, but the truth is I'm not going to do anything about that paper cut. Okay. You need to be able to position what you do as the biggest problem solver for your clients. Okay. The biggest problem solver for your clients. You cannot be solving paper cut problems and charging bleeding neck prices. And you cannot have paper cut positioning and be charging bleeding neck prices. Okay. You have to position your solution as the bleeding neck. Notice I'm talking a lot about money because what do business owners care about? They care about money. Okay. Oh goodness. I think my connection might be interrupted here. Do you all see me? I think I'm back. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, sorry about that. My connection somehow got interrupted. All right. So, and I see your question here, Mia. I will answer it in just a second here. Thank you, Onika. I appreciate that. And I hope you'll connect with me on LinkedIn. So I invite you to book a 20-minute call with me. It is absolutely free. And if we are a good fit to work together, you can sign up with me. And if not, I'm happy to have made a friend and to have provided you some value. Here are the things I do. I do public relations. I do speaker placement and strategy. I do brand voice and social media strategy. I do email marketing and messaging. I do speech writing and speaker training, global stages and writing and placement and coaching, business strategy. And I teach people how to do webinars like this one. Okay. So use the QR code. You can book a call with me. I'll also put it in the chat here. And I'll, if I have the time, I will answer these couple of questions. Okay. Mia says, how can creatives like authors and performers turn their platforms into consistent income streams? Mia, the best advice I have for you is ask people what they need. Okay. Don't do too much work until you get a client. All right. The biggest mistake that new business owners make and the biggest mistake that creatives make is they do a ton of work and then nobody buys what they do. And then they give up. Okay. So you absolutely need to, absolutely need to get feedback from people who you can help. Okay. And Julia, same question. What's the first step to turning a personal brand into a profitable business? Get feedback. Don't do too much work until somebody tells you, yes, I will pay you for this. All right. Because what is the one thing you need in order to have business? You need clients. Okay. So this is your client acquisition strategy. Julia says, what's your advice for women who feel hesitant or uncomfortable to promote yourselves? Practice. Do it often. Do it as much as you can. Do you think I had enough. Do you think I was born talking about money like this? Do you think I was born talking about $1 million? No, I had to practice. Okay. What's the fastest way for an entrepreneur to get booked on stages in 2025? Well, my friends, South by Southwest is open until July 27th. By the way, all my clients and I are working on South by Southwest applications right now. Okay. So yes, get booked on stages. Reach out to friends who have communities and go speak to their communities. I don't care if it's 5 or 10 people. That could be the best way for you to get on a stage and in front of your ideal clients. Same thing, Aisha, you asked about podcasts. Okay. Same thing. You're borrowing somebody's stage with a podcast. So treat that accordingly. All right, my friends, I think I am over time here. So I am going to wrap it up here. Please book a call with me. I'd be really happy to chat with you all. And thank you for your time today. And thank you to the team at IDS. I really appreciate it.
Yes, Dr. Mary, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for answering each and every question that is in the chart. I hope our audience got your answers. Thank you so much for your valuable time, Mary. And please be on the backstage and join in our next session. Thank you so much. Bye.